The most important thing that we have to address first is the famous dirty bulk. If you don't know what a dirty bulk is, I'm glad for you, because it's scarred a lot of people's, early days into lifting, especially mine. I was on the dirty bulk very aggressively when I was younger. When I first got into training, I was still at high school, and I was young. I'm still young, but I was a teenager. I was always eating, very highly active with sport, with zero nutritional knowledge. And I had this idea in my mind, like many people do when they first start: eat big to get big. So me and my friend Rob, that got me into training, he had a bench press in his garage at home, so we'd do bench press. And then we started watching 300, one of the greatest movies of all time, which really pushed me through my lifting. We used to watch it and then Google research the Spartan workout, because they were so jacked. Leonidas, his physique was we were like goals. So we looked at it, and then online, their workouts were like jumping, lunges, push-ups. I remember getting introduced to Hindu push-ups, which we do in jiu-jitsu, which are called judo push-ups, and many other funky exercises that I bet you they did not do to get ready for this role in 300. They probably would have lifted weights. Maybe some of them would have jumped on a few saucy supplements, you could say. And they just looked like what we wanted to look like. So we did that, and we just used to eat. We used to get on our bike down to McDonald's and get something called a Hunger Buster from New Zealand. If you haven't had a Hunger Buster, you haven't lived. It's a Big Mac or a McChicken. You can swap it out, but the Big Mac was always better. And a cheeseburger, a chocolate sundae, chips, and a drink. So 2 burgers, sundae, chips, and a drink. And it was like our go-to. We would do that every weekend. We didn't watch our macros, watch our calories. We just ate big to get big, whatever. So what ended up happening for me, especially, was I just I got bigger, but I just kind of got fatter until I remember looking at the YouTube video when I was a singer. You can still look it up on YouTube if you want to. Comment below if you do go find this on YouTube, because it's quite funny. I sang Titanium when I was back in a boy band called Morehouse, and it looks like I have no neck. And I trained heavy traps because I didn't really know what I was doing. I just copied this guy at the gym who was doing heavy barbell shrugs, and I used to do it. I used to kill my lower back, but I just did it because he did it. And I had big traps. But I just had a lot of fat as well. And that was my dirty bulk. I would eat 8 Wheat Bix in the morning, sugar all over it, banana and sugar. And then I'd have a pretty good lunch at high school: sandwiches, can of creamed rice, fruit, can of tuna, maybe something like that. And then after school, I'd have these lasagna toppers. I'm not sure if, I haven't seen them in so long, but it was like a lasagna. But it had what do you call it around the outside? Crumbed. Yeah, it was crumbed lasagna. So I used to have 2 of those with 4 pieces of bread. So 2 sandwiches and just garlic butter on it and tomato sauce. I'd have that. Then I'd have dinner, and then I'd have dessert, where my brother and I would have ice cream and put cornflakes and rice pops, or rice bubbles, or Cocoa Pops in, and just stir it around until it was this, kind of like something you get from a frozen yogurt store. So my diet was atrocious, right? And I was just lifting heavy and eating big. And that's what the dirty bulk is all about. It's about not caring about your macros or your calories. It's just about eat big to get big. You're always eating high calorie foods. You want sauce with that? Of course. Is that a rhetorical question? You want bread with that? Hell yeah. So you just keep throwing things on and just throwing things on, and you just create this huge calorie surplus, and you just end up getting really fat. And the thinking behind the dirty bulk was more calories equals more muscle, right? More food, yeah? Just get real big. And a lot of the pro bodybuilders were doing that too. They were just they would take photos, and this was early in the fitness industry. They would take photos. They'd be at In-N-Out Burger. They'd be like super jacked. They'd have a big gym pump, take their shirt off, big flex. Like if you're watching on YouTube, you can see me here. Like I'm flexing, look at the camera. And then down the bottom, like where their abs are, just below their abs, would be like 10 burgers and fries and drinks. And they'll be like, cheat meal, bro. And then everyone was like, whoa, you eat that and get big? That means I have to do that. Eat big to get big, bro. Yeah, man. And then it just kind of created this whole thing. And then the dirty bulk was born. And you know what? You can eat like that. If, like most people that were posting that, you are on exogenous testosterone, which is steroids or performance enhancing drugs. That really does help. And the thing is, sometimes those influencers wouldn't even eat those meals. It was just for the thumbnail, or it was just for the gram. And then they'd be like, all right, you finished with the photo? Okay, let me give the burgers to the rest of my friends. The dirty bulk is just, you just go nuts. You just eat whatever you want, whenever you want, and you keep training hard. And for some people, it will work. And for the some people is hard gainers, because hard gainers are people that struggle to gain weight. I fall into this category. I think I fell into this category when I was younger. And it's just when, like, you just don't eat that much, so you have to have those high calorie, highly tasty, foods to get calories in to make sure that you're getting in a surplus. But for most people, if they eat a dirty bulk diet, they're just going to gain a lot of fat. The truth is about muscle building, it's a slow process. And just because you're gaining weight does not mean you're gaining muscle. It's very different. That's why it's good to get your body fat tested, because you could look on the scale and be like, man, this week I gained a kilo. I'm getting huge. But if you gained a kilo in a week, that does not mean that kilo is muscle mass. Unless you get a DEXA scan, or you get your calipers done by a well-educated personal trainer who can do your body fat calipers, and you're the same body fat percentage and you've gained a kilo, then it's muscle mass, so 100%. But most likely, if you're gaining a kilo a week, you're getting fat. If you're advanced, if you're even intermediate, muscle gain is slow. It's very slow. It's painful. It's the worst part of lifting. As a natural athlete or a natural lifter, bodybuilder, whatever you want to call yourself, it's very slow. And it's challenging, because sometimes you're like, man, why am I even doing this? I'm grinding 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I'm weighing my meals. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it's just such a slow grind. That's just the nature of it, man. That's why it's important to fall in love with it, because fall in love with progressive overload, with getting stronger. Set yourself performance-based goals, because if you're just worried about your aesthetics, it can get quite disappointing the more you do it. I've been training for 15 years now. Do you think I'm gaining a kilo of muscle a week? I don't even know if I'm gaining a kilo of muscle a year. It's very hard the more you get advanced. And if you don't take performance enhancing drugs, it's even harder, because you have to do it. You have to get in a calorie surplus and just slowly chip away at building muscle. But the point I was getting at here is, just because you're gaining weight does not mean you're gaining muscle. The calorie surplus that you need is so small compared to what you think it is. You don't have to eat an extra meal per day. You don't have to eat an extra 1,000 calories per day. All you have to do is just eat above your maintenance by the slightest margin. And the margin that I like to do that by is by just 5% of your calories. 5% of your calories. Let me do the math right now. So my current calorie maintenance is around 3,500. So I'm currently eating 3,500 calories at maintenance, because I just finished the fat loss phase, and I'm just chilling out at maintenance, eating. I'm eating 400 more calories, which is awesome. And if I go 3,500, which is my maintenance, and just give myself the smallest calorie surplus, it's 3,675. It's an extra 175 calories. That's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. It's so small, it's not even noticeable. That's like a piece of bread. So I'm not eating an extra McDonald's meal. I'm not having a hunger buster. I might just have an extra piece of bread at dinner. And that feels like it's not good enough. It feels like, what the hell's a piece of bread going to do? But you know what it does? It just gives you that surplus of energy. And that could be enough for you to build as much muscle as you can without gaining excess fat. But if I went ahead and go 3,500, now I'm bulking, I need to go 4,500 and then just throw an extra 1,000 calories on. If I only need 175 calories, I've got 825 calories of potential calories just to go straight to fat gain every day. That's a recipe for gaining way too much fat for the amount of muscle that I'm building. Sure, you will optimize your muscle building just as much, but you're going to gain fat. And when you gain too much fat when you're bulking, it's not good for this very reason. Then you have to lose that fat later on. Sure, it's fun eating whatever you want, doing a dirty bulk, optimizing your calorie surplus, but gaining that extra fat is just slowing you down later on. That just means that your diet, when you decide to lose fat again, is just going to be so much harder. Your prep is going to be so much longer because you've gained this extra X amount of kilos instead of just being disciplined with a 5% calorie surplus or even a 10% calorie surplus. If I was to go to a 10% calorie surplus, I'll be at 3,850, which still, an extra 350 calories, that's not much. When you think about it, it's like, I don't know, it might be an extra cheeseburger if we're going to talk about McDonald's. Like, it's just 350 calories. That's 5 eggs. Like, if you just have your normal diet at maintenance and just add 5 eggs, now you may just have the calorie surplus that you need to optimally build as much muscle as possible and gain as minimal fat as possible, which is the goal of a bulk. People call it a lean bulk, a clean bulk. I just call it an intelligent bulk, because the more fat you gain now, the more you have to lose later on. And it's just no good. And often that added fat that people gain when they don't really need to discourages them and kind of disappoints them when they look in the mirror, because people like to maintain a lean physique. I'm not trying to say that you have to be lean all the time. I'm just speaking from experience. I coach a lot of people. I've trained my whole life pretty much since I was 14, 15 years. That's someone's whole life somewhere out there in the world. I've trained for a long time. I know, even myself, I'm a personal trainer. I'm a fitness dude online. And, I understand that looks aren't everything. But still, I like to maintain a certain look just because that's how I like to look. Even though I know it doesn't mean anything about my self-worth, it doesn't make me a better person, it doesn't make me better than you or your mum or your dad or your brother, it doesn't make me better, it's just a body fat percentage. I know that. But I like looking lean, looking muscular. It's just what it is. And if you ask most people, and they're being honest, they would probably say the same thing. Yes, it's healthier than being overweight, but it's just like an image that we aspire to. And I train so much, I want to get the most out of it. And for me, that's gaining the least amount of fat possible and building the most amount of muscle possible when I'm in a build. And to do that, you only need a pretty small surplus. 5 to 10% is a great place to start. If you're a hard gainer, like I said earlier, a person that just struggles to gain weight and just can't seem to just put on any pounds, maybe you can start at 20%. That isn't an aggressive approach. So for me, if we come back to my example, just because it's personal and it's easy to understand, if we give myself a 20% calorie deficit, that brings me up to 4,200. That is quite a lot. That's quite a lot of food per day. So for me to do that, I think if I did that personally, I would gain weight at a pretty rapid rate, and that would be too high for me. So maybe I'm not a hard gainer. Maybe 20% is too high. And once again, guys, these rules are just suggestions. Your perfect surplus might be 9.76% or 4.38%. Like, it comes down to trial and error. I can give you my calorie calculator, which is in the top description of this, wherever you're listening to this podcast. You can use my calorie calculator, but let me give you this piece of advice. It's just a guess. And that's all formulas are. They're just good guesses, because the amount you walk, the amount you sleep, the length of your workouts, the type of workouts that you're doing, there's so many things that are different, but it's a very good guess for the information that you put into the formulas. So, if 5% calorie surplus isn't doing it, if your weight stays the same and it was meant to be a 5% calorie surplus, don't complain, "Oh, Brock, your calorie calculator is rubbish." Maybe you put the wrong physical activity level in, or maybe you just need a higher calorie surplus. So instead of just saying, "Oh, woe is me," just find the solution and give yourself more calories. Bump your calories up by 100, 150, maybe 200 calories. Stick to that for a week or two and see how you go. That is how you build muscle optimally. It's trial and error. Nothing is black and white. Nothing is exact. Except for like principles, like you need a calorie surplus, you need a deficit, you need maintenance for this and that. Those are pretty set in stone, but there are numbers and things like that. Things fluctuate, things change. So just make sure you keep that in mind. So there we go. The dirty bulk debunked. Thank you very much.